r/AskReddit. Posted by u/dpunk00. Serious, what's the creepiest, most unexplainable thing that happened to you? Don't forget to comment most unexplainable thing that happened to you. Our family cat passed away when I was 14 and it really sucked. He was a great cat. Fast forward to 16 years old and I'm sitting by my mom on the couch and she's showing me something on Facebook on her iPad when I swear I saw a cat out of the corner of my eye, so I look up and it's our old cat walking into the kitchen rubbing his tail against the wall as he made the corner as he always did. My mom also looked up just after me and stared and looked back at me and I was like, "Did you just see our old cat?" She replied, "Yeah, he just went around the corner there." I got up and went and looked in the kitchen and he's nowhere to be found. 10 years later my mom and I still talk about how creepy that was that we both saw it. One night, probably around 2 a.m., I was sleeping and dreaming. I can't remember the dream, but in the dream, it all of a sudden got quiet and everything became still. A voice in my dream comes out of nowhere and starts saying, "Wake up. Go to Nicholas, my 3-year-old son, room now. Wake up. Wake up. AMI, my real name, wake up." I wake up and lay there for a few seconds, thinking how weird of a dream it was. I chalked it up to a crazy dream but decided to go check on my kids. I head to Nicholas' room and open his door. He sleeps with a pretty bright nightlight and all the other lights off. When I opened the door, I saw a shadow figure standing at the foot of his bed. I immediately threw myself over my son and started screaming to the figure to go away. The shadow rushes to the window and hops out. I lived in a trailer at the time. Our windows were double hung, the kind that slides up and down, and we had screens in all of them. This was during the summer, so I kept the windows open often. My husband works nights, so I scooped my son up, and went to my daughter's shared room and locked the door. I called 911 and the police were there in like 10 minutes. What happened was my neighbor had a nephew staying the summer with him. The nephew was 18, and was going to be helping his uncle at his construction business. His uncle, my neighbor, and my husband sometimes share a beer or two and talk outside. My husband was telling the neighbor how he would be on night shift the next few weeks. His nephew overheard, and chose to break in one of the nights he knew my husband was working. He swore to the cops and everyone else he only broke in to steal shit for his drug habit. He didn't have a record for harming children or nothing like that, so he may have been telling the truth about looking for money or shit to sell, but who knows. Another time, I was sleeping when the voice came again in my dream. Like the last time, everything in my dream went silent and still. And again I can't remember the dream. The voice comes again and says, "Wake up. Wake up, ME. Go to Nova. Nova needs you." Nova is my daughter. She was 6 at the time. I woke up and immediately hauled ass to the girl's room. Before I even opened the door, I could hear her. Nova has severe asthma and has been hospitalized more times than I can count. I heard her wheezing and struggling to breathe. I turned the light on, grabbed her inhaler and a steroid that she has to take when her asthma gets bad, and screamed for my husband to call 911. He was home that night. The ambulance came and took her to the hospital. Her oxygen levels were dangerously low, so she was in the hospital for about a week. If I didn't get to her in time, she would have died. I haven't heard the voice since. I have no idea what it was. Maybe mother's intuition? Maybe a subconscious thing? Maybe a deceased family member or friend helping me out from the other side. My brother passed away in 2008. Fast forward to 2016. I was asleep and I had a dream about him, as I often did since he passed away. This dream was different. It was like he was talking directly to me, looking straight in my eyes. In the dream I asked him, "Is it really you?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Prove it." He then reached out and touched me on the arm, and when he did I jolted up in bed wide awake, covered in sweat. I thought all this was really strange and I went to the bathroom to put some water on my face. As I was looking in the mirror, I saw that there was a backwards R written on my arm in pen exactly where he touched me in the dream. The letter R was the first letter of his name. There were no pens in my bedroom, and I have never sleepwalked before. You can call me crazy, or lying or whatever, but that was the single most unexplainable thing that has ever happened to me. I had a dream a few weeks ago. Bad times in my life, right on the cusp of things getting much better, they are now, and I was sleeping badly and just not mentally well. My favorite uncle, closest thing I had to a dad growing up, actual dad was not good at dadding, died suddenly of a heart attack a few years ago. It was abrupt and shocked everyone. I was across the country and distraught by the news. He was by far the closest of any of my family members. I was dreaming about something irrelevant to him or anything, and suddenly I turned around and there he was, just standing there holding his arms out and grinning like, "Hey!" I just lost sense of the dream immediately. I was so thrilled to see him. Like the dream was a work assignment and he was just showing up to break the monotony. I jumped into his arms and hugged him and kept telling him how happy I was to see him. The rest of that dream, he just hung out with me. I was just so happy. I've never had an experience like that because honestly I've always been the aloof black sheep of my family and I never imagined anyone would care to visit me after they died of all people, if such a thing is possible. But there he was, and it will stick with me always that maybe he just came to say what's up and give me a little slap on the shoulder and make sure I kept on trucking because better stuff was coming. I miss him. Stayed in a luxurious resort in a small island with 3 of my friends when we were in high school. My friend's dad was the manager. This was a tiny island. You could walk around in less than a day and there were only a few suites. Very exclusive and it was far from the nearest town. At night, it would get really dark and peaceful. The staff there always talked about how they have had strange or ghostly encounters throughout the years. FYI, this island was used as a camp/hiding place for soldiers back in the day. It still has the lighthouse they used that's over hundreds of years old. Anyway, our room had 2 king-sized beds. In the middle of the night while everyone else was asleep, I woke up suddenly and felt extremely hot. I was sweating like crazy even if the AC was on full blast and it was blowing straight at me. I felt something weird, like a presence, next to my side of the bed. I've never felt so scared in my entire life that I was shaking and sweating profusely. But what was really crazy was that only one side of my body was hot, the one by the edge of the bed. The other was cold. I hid under the blanket and closed my eyes as hard as I could because I was afraid that if I opened it, I would see something. I felt the energy of that presence get closer to me, like we were face to face. I kept inching towards my friend who was sleeping next to me. After a while, it suddenly disappeared and I wasn't hot anymore. The next morning I didn't mention it to anyone. Until they talked about how cold it was in the bedroom. They were freezing the whole night. Then I told them what I felt that night. My friend who slept beside me got really quiet. She told me not to freak out but she woke up last night too and she saw a girl standing next to my side of the bed and just staring right at me. I've never not believed in ghosts, but I also don't necessarily believe in them if that makes sense. But I just can't explain that night. It was the first time I had experienced a feeling I just couldn't explain or shake off. Still bothers me to this day. After moving to LA, I ran into my ex-girlfriend 5 times over the course of 2 months. For context, I had moved from South Orange County to LA for a nice office job. My ex-girlfriend had moved to San Diego after the breakup, then moved to LA after breaking up with her last boyfriend. I would have chalked it up to random chance that we now lived a few miles from one another, except when we first noticed one another, she immediately said, "I'm not stalking you." Suspicion intensifying. Thankfully, after a 5th time we ran into each other I didn't see her again for almost 5 years when I was getting ready to move back to Hawaii. I had the foresight to lie about which island I was moving to, just in case she decided to follow me at some point. My parents and brother were out, he was meeting his friends and my parents were somewhere. I can't remember lol. Fast forward a couple hours later or so, it's dark now, whoopee, and I hear something downstairs, a thud. Then I hear a flipping hello. No one was home. Except me. I go to the landing at the top of the stairs and say hello. Thinking it was my brother coming home, as he rode his bike and would put in the garden shed and come through the back door. I get nothing in return. My brother likes to scare me a lot around the house so I start thinking it's him, he's gonna scare me in 3, 2, 1. Nothing. I go down 2 stairs and say hello? Peering over the banister to see if I can see my brother hiding, waiting for me to come downstairs. Nothing. He came home an hour or so after that happened. And my parents came home about 10 or so minutes after my brother did. To this day, I still have no clue on what the hell said hello. This actually just happened last week. I've been traveling for work a lot recently, and as such I stay in hotels. Not extraordinary, nor are they hellholes. Just regular generic hotels. Well, the one I was at last week had an elevator that was annoyingly slow. Everything it did was slow. Whether it was coming to your floor, opening or closing of the doors all took what felt like forever. I'm leaving the hotel to go to the gym, and as I approached the elevator, I saw a little girl standing in the elevator. Assumed little girl, just saw a short figure with long hair. Didn't catch the face because the door was closing. I figured I'd give it a second. I didn't want to press the button and have the door stop closing and the little girl have to stand on an elevator with a big adult male she didn't know. I waited, maybe 3 seconds after the door shut, and then pressed the elevator button. The elevator that I saw the little girl standing in opened, and she was nowhere to be seen. I then took the stairs. Smile. I spend a lot of time in the woods, and occasionally camp in the bed of my truck with a tarp tented over it. While this makes for great rain protection, I can't see out at all. I was camping in Georgia up in the Allegheny Mountains. It was foggy night, which isn't too uncommon, and I was laying in bed getting ready to go to sleep when a bunch of coyotes started howling and barking not too far away. This isn't too unusual, but I'm still not totally used to it. What happened next though is what was so creepy. Normally, when coyotes go off, it builds up and then dies off slowly. I heard a coyote yelp as if it had been injured and it went dead silent. Then I heard a quiet crunch of the leaves as something got closer. Then the crunch of the stones as it got to where I was parked. Then it was silent. It was then that the distinct sound of a nail on my truck's side rang through my ears like nails on a chalkboard. Something was just feet from me. Then nothing. It brushed my tarp and that was the last of it. Silence. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. In the morning I got out and all I could find was a scratch on the side of my truck from the nails and a single coyote footprint. My guess is that a coyote hurt itself, which spooked them, and one came in close to check out the smells of my camp. But that night had to be one of the absolutely creepiest nights of my life.